Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Breakouts. My name is Emily McCormick, and I'll be your host this afternoon. So for those of you who don't know, Breakouts is a monthly series on Yahoo Finance where we interview one-on-one CEOs, executives, founders, and disruptors in the business community. Tonight, I'm really excited to welcome Zak Normandin. He's the founder and CEO of Iris Nova. You might better know him as the founder and CEO of the beverage brand Dirty Lemon. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome to the stage Zak Normandin. All right. Zak, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to go back to the beginning because you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur. Your first venture was Little Duck Organics. That was a children's food concept, which makes sense. You're also a father. How did you go from that to Iris Nova and Dirty Lemon, which is a millennial brand geared mostly towards women?
So when I was building Little Duck Organics, we were always trying to get the fastest, we were trying to get new products to market very quickly. So we were trying to bring the fastest innovation to consumers as fast as possible, or the best innovation to consumers as fast as possible. And one thing that was always very frustrating to me was the process of having to present a product to a buyer and then have the buyer approve that product and then basically wait until it got onto store shelves. After I had sold that company in 2013 and really just started thinking through new and different ways to be able to get new products to consumers. And that's how we landed on Dirty Lemon and the way that we sell the products to consumers.
And why did we need another beverage company?
Beverage has always been really interesting to me because the beverages that consumers choose to drink, I think, say a lot about who they are as individuals. So the coffee the coffee shop that you go to every morning, the spirit that you choose to drink when you're at a bar, the bottled water that you choose to drink, it all says something about the individual. And I was always really interested in just this idea of building an aesthetic around a product and selling on the brand promise rather than, or on a brand rather than the liquid that's inside the product or whatever was inside the product.
So what does it say about a customer then who's drinking Dirty Lemon?
So we are targeting millennial females. So we have about a 60% female consumer base right now. 60% female, 40% male, higher discretionary income. It is a premium product. Care about wellness, fitness, beauty. So it's very much focused on the modern consumer. And and so we from the beginning we always built. We were focused on building a lifestyle around the brand before we actually sold the product. So a lot of our marketing is actually very subtle and not very focused on the product, but more around the ancillary, different elements of the lifestyle of the modern consumer.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about price. Like you said, this is a premium product. One of these bottles is about $10. Mm-hmm. How is that going to fare? We talk a lot about potentially there being a recession or a downturn, things like that. Are people going to prioritize this kind of product?
So if you look at historically in recessions, consumers tend to continue to spend on food and beverage products specifically. I think that this is an affordable luxury for consumers that are looking to have the benefit of the functional ingredients that we're using, but incorporated them into their daily routines. So I don't think we're not too concerned about that, but also we're not prioritizing or over prioritizing Dirty Lemon. We as Iris Nova, which is the parent company, we're investing in brands now, and we're actually creating new brands internally to roll underneath the platform. And that's all happened after Coca-Cola's investment in December. Yeah,
let's talk about that Coca-Cola relationship. How did that come about? Because that was a $15 million seed round.
Correct.
Closed back last year, $60 million valuation for the company. That's pretty sizable.
Yeah, it was great. Very exciting partnership.
How did that come about?
We had been building a relationship with Coca-Cola for some time. I have a great deal of respect for Coca-Cola and the infrastructure that they've created over the last 100+ years. I think there are very few products where you can take a bottle of or the product that a brand sells, put it on a table, or put it in front of someone anywhere in the world, and they're going to know what that brand is. And I think Coca-Cola is one of those rare examples. So, for that reason, and just given their reach and their operational infrastructure, we wanted to, partner with someone like that to learn from them. Our vision is to actually compete with Coca-Cola one day. I think that there's a lot of inefficiencies in the Coca-Cola model, and I think there's a lot of things that we can be doing, that we can do in our organization that actually put us competitively against them. And that's what we're learning, and also using the information that we learn from them to to grow what we're doing.
I mean, competing with Coca-Cola, that's one of the biggest beverage giants in the world. What is it really going to take to be able to manifest that?
So if you look at the beverage industry, so it's expected to be a $2 trillion industry by 2023, and it's 60% held by Coke and Pepsi. So when you look at how fragmented, or you look at all of the beverage brands that are out there, the majority of products that are consumed are Coke and Pepsi's products, and we think that those products are very out of touch with the modern consumer. So they're high sugar, high calorie, carbonated soft drinks for the most part, and we're investing in and creating products that are better for you. None of our products have added sugar. They're all wellness focused, and they're meeting the needs of the modern consumer, which are changing very quickly.
But at the same time, we are seeing a company like a Coke or a Pepsi. They're pivoting to try to keep up with those trends. They're moving towards coffees, energy drinks, things that a younger customer might be more interested in, that's more health focused. So would a Coke or Pepsi be interested in taking up something like a Dirty Lemon or an Iris Nova?
I think when you look at the products, they are trying to shift, but these organizations are so large, and in many ways they're dependent upon bottlers to produce their products. And I think that that's actually the big disconnect between the innovation that consumers want and the products that organizations like Coca-Cola want to be bringing to their consumer base. I think there are examples of large strategics that have done a good job of this. So you look at Pepsi with Bubbly and Life Water, both very successful case studies in reacting to changing consumer demand. I think Coke has been less successful in that, and that's not to say that we don't have respect for them, but historically they've I think been less reactive to changes in the market and more kind of straightforward in kind of just continuing to do the same thing over and over again. If you look at the latest innovation for Coca-Cola, on the Coca-Cola side, it's cinnamon Coca-Cola, which I don't think is very innovative at all, and they're launching that over the Christmas holiday. What we have the benefit of as an organization that has built a direct connection with our consumers, and that's all through text message. So the most interesting part of our business is this technology component that we've built, which allows us to place orders for product, or allows us to connect with consumers directly, allows customers to place orders for our products over text message, and really allows us to continue to build a relationship with them so that we can serve them new and different options on demand. So we could create a new product, you and I, right now, we could have it out to consumers in 30 days. And that's something that big strategics will never be able to touch because of the way that they've been built historically.
But let's say, like a Coke, let's say James Quincy came knocking on the door and said, hey, we'd love to acquire Dirty Lemon or Iris Nova in its entirety. Would you say yes to an offer like that?
I mean, obviously, we're not building for that right now. I think that, obviously as a startup, we're looking to, eventually we have a lot of investors and we need to, provide a return for those investors. But I think the eventual path to exit for us is through an IPO where we can then, continue to do what we're doing on a much larger scale.
And we've seen a lot of consumer-facing IPOs this year. We've seen Uber, Lyft, we're seing WeWork, and now Peloton forthcoming.
Right.
What's your timeline for that?
I think in the next 3 years. So we want to get to $100 million in revenue profitably. And with a portfolio of brands that we have a stake in each of the brands that are in the portfolio. And I think that'll happen in the next 2 to 3 years.
So are you profitable now? And if not, when do you expect profitability?
We are not profitable, but a lot of that is just given the stage that we're at. So we are in very focused growth mode right now with all of the profits that we're making from the sales of products going back into marketing and branding and exposure for the brands.
Yeah, so you've talked about investing $100 million in the next 3 to 5 years to cultivate these brands. First of all, where are these brands coming from? Are they going to be incubated within Iris Nova and using the talent that you have now, or are you looking outside?
So we're expecting the split to be about 50-50. We have a few really exciting JVs or joint ventures that we're utilizing the Dirty Lemon creative team, operational infrastructure to actually create products that will have a significant ownership stake in with other beverage brands actually. So we're doing that. We have other brands that we're just creating fully, ourselves internally, and then and then where we're finding other brands is we have great visibility in the industry. We're on the street every day. We do sell our products into places like Soho House, Barry's Bootcamp, Erewhon in LA. And we have our pulse on what's happening in the market, I think, in a way that's much different than larger strategics. And also, we're entrepreneurs ourselves, so
Right.
we have an operating team that's has an incredible amount of experience in beverage, and I think that naturally attracts the right types of brands and the right types of products that we can roll into the platform.
Right, because your background yourself is in consumer packaged goods, really in kind of the branding, the packaging. Of course, this is a beautiful presentation. So where did you find that R&D talent to actually create the Dirty Lemon beverage as it stands today?
So we've created all of the products internally. We actually have a full beverage lab out at our office in Los Angeles. And it was something that, so after I sold my last company, I started an agency, and we were working with very large CPGs and then also entrepreneurs to create new products for them. My focus has always been on how can we get new products to market fast. And it was through that process that I built a network of formulators and package suppliers and co-packers, all of these different people that actually help bring products to market very quickly. And we formulated the first Dirty Lemon beverage. It was very simple. It's the black and white bottle, which you guys may have in the audience. And that product quickly turned into Collagen, which was our next beverage, and so on and so forth. But we've launched 13 beverages underneath the Dirty Lemon line since we started. And many more to come. Yeah,
so let's just talk a little bit about these flavors. So you have collagen, retinol, some of these products that maybe you're more familiar with putting on your skin, for example. So what results are you really promising with Dirty Lemon?
So a lot of the ingredients that we've been using have been very common in the naturopathic or beauty space for a very long time. So they have a proven history of efficacy, in different formats. So you look at collagen. Collagen's been a supplement that's been on the market, it's sometimes on the bottom shelf of a natural food store, for decades now. What we did is we took that product and that ingredient, we blended it into a ready-to-drink beverage, and then we put it in a bottle. We've done the same thing with each of the other beverages. So on the Dirty Lemon line, we have a base of lemon juice, ocean minerals, and sea salt, and then we add flavor and function on top of that. And that's been a really great way for us to scale. I mean, we could launch hundreds of different beverages underneath the Dirty Lemon line and not ever really be tied to one specific ingredient. And I think that's a challenge that I've seen with a lot of other brands, is that they focus on one ingredient, and consumers are so transient in their purchasing decisions now that it becomes really hard to kind of rest your laurels on one specific ingredient and build a brand that way. But that said, we don't believe in billion-dollar brands. We're trying to build million-dollar LTV customers, not billion-dollar brands. We want to have a billion-dollar organization, but I don't think that billion-dollar brands will exist in the future. I don't think that that there's the next Coca-Cola as a brand, like the product Coca-Cola being built right now, because there's just too many options. There's a lot of startups out there that are creating a variety of different products for consumers, and naturally that creates a level of selection that consumers enjoy and they want to partake in.
So you want to compete with Coca-Cola, but you don't want to be the next Coca-Cola and take the route that they've taken. So what's that main, discrepancy between the two and that main strategy that's differentiating you then?
So Coca-Cola at its core is a B2B business. They sell syrups to the bottlers, and the bottlers put the bottles of the product that they produce onto trucks. The trucks bring the product to stores. The stores sell the product to consumers. So the stores are actually the B2C part of the equation. And there's a lot of inefficiency and a lot of people that need to touch that bottle before it gets to the consumer. We've cut out all of those middlemen, and we have a relationship direct with the consumer. So a customer places an order for Dirty Lemon on their phone. So they're on their last bottle of Dirty Lemon. They text us and say, send me another case of retinol or whatever product. And then we deliver to them same day or next day everywhere in the US. So this is very fast, immediate access to the products that consumers want. And we're utilizing that same technology for all of the brands in the portfolio, and we're pooling all of the customers. So if you've purchased a Dirty Lemon product before, you can text any one of our portfolio brands and place an order for those products as well without having to enter in your credit card information, your billing information, or your shipping information.
Same day or next day, that's on par with Amazon and a huge infrastructure giant. How have you actually achieved that? Where are your distribution centers?
So they're spread out throughout the U.S. Our goal is actually to beat Amazon Prime on same-day shipping or on two-day shipping. So we think that through courier networks, we can actually deliver same-day in most of the major U.S. cities. So in markets like New York and L.A., we're testing same-day deliveries right now, and then we'll expand beyond those markets to other larger cities like Chicago, Miami, Dallas, Texas. And everywhere else, we have distribution centers that are located within 1 day ground shipping for the rest of the U.S.
But Dirty Lemon is also available on Amazon. So is that relationship going to disappear eventually, or what's the use of that channel if you're trying to beat their distribution infrastructure?
I mean, there's no, at this point in time, it's very challenging to compete with Amazon. I think for anyone, the scale is just too great for us to not sell the products there, because there is an opportunity to sell a lot of product through Amazon. So that's one. So with all of the brands in our portfolio, we handle all of their distribution infrastructure, or fulfillment rather, with the exception being Amazon. So the brands in the portfolio can still sell on Amazon, but otherwise all of their distribution goes through Ars Nova.
And you're based nationally, plans for international expansion?
Yes, so we have an office right now in New York and Los Angeles. We're actually opening an office in London, and then I think the next natural path beyond that would be Asia. So we're specifically looking at Japan and Singapore as interesting hubs where we could launch some of the products in the portfolio. What
do you see as being attractive about those markets for the forthcoming brands in the Ars Nova portfolio?
I think a big motivator or inspiration rather for me was actually Asia in developing the technology platform that we use now. So when we first started in 2015, I was looking at different methods of transacting around the world. And in Asia, for years now, WeChat, Line, all of the different messaging platforms have had payment integration that's very it's something that people use all the time. You can buy a pizza, you can pay your babysitter, you can basically do anything through your messaging app. And this idea of conversational commerce has been around for some time in Asia. I think just in general, the market is much more developed there, especially for consumer products. Coca-Cola, for example, launches hundreds of new brands every year in Asia specifically, and that's not happening here in the States. So I think that I'm interested in that market. I don't know if the products would do well there, but that's something that we are looking for strategic alignment in market to be able to to test out the brand in our platform there.
Yeah, so just talking a little bit about that text platform, because that's how 90% of your customers are making purchases. They're just texting Ars Nova, Dirty Lemon. They're saying, send me a bottle of Rose Dirty Lemon, or I'm here at the Tribeca drugstore and I'd like to get 2 bottles of the matcha drink. Is that sustainable in the long term, having this text-based method of consumer transactions, or do you need to broaden that?
So we think in the future that brands are going to have a phone number and a website. The phone number is not going to be for picking up the phone and calling a brand. It's going to be to pull out your phone and text the brand and say, I want more product, I'm checking on my order, ask a question to customer service, and it's all going to happen over messaging. So no, I don't think that this is going away anytime soon. The idea of conversational commerce is far more efficient and more frictionless than any other option on the market right now. It's more frictionless than subscription, which is basically going away at this point, or just logging into a website where you have to enter your username and password. Downloading an app has a lot of friction around it, and going to the store, I would argue the grocery store especially has the most friction, because you have to go into your car, walk down the street, carry bags home. I have 3 children, and when they want food, they pick up a phone and they go to Uber Eats or Postmates or whatever, or Amazon Prime Now, and we have food delivered in 2 hours, and that is the future. So if you look at millennials specifically, 60% of millennials by 2021 will be ordering all of their food online, which is a staggering statistic and really tells you, so that's just millennials. Then you go to Gen Z, I think the number is going to be even higher. So these are all of the different data points that we're looking at as we continue to invest in infrastructure that supports conversational commerce at scale.
Right. I mean, I order most of my groceries online, order from Postmates all the time.
Right.
But just looking at that, that's a huge part of your company. So are you a tech company or are you a beverage company?
The most interesting parallel to this is Netflix. So Netflix launched in 1997, and at the time they were just basically a DVD by mail type delivery system. And I think that Netflix, what everyone questioned back then was, well, like, why are you investing in streaming? It's like, the path to distribution is through DVDs at the time. They invested in streaming, and it wasn't until 7 years later that they released their first original series, which was House of Cards. And now if you look at Netflix as a company, they're much more of a content company now and less of a tech company because the technology has been commoditized. But they were there and first to market with basically bringing streaming to the masses and really making it a more common thing to sit at home, turn on your TV, and go to your Netflix app and look at all the shows that you had available to watch. They'll spend $16 billion this year on content, which is more than almost every studio nearly combined. So they're spending the most of any of the content studios. And anyways, I think that the beverage industry is in a very similar place now to where Netflix was with the movie industry or the media industry back in 1997. It's a very antiquated distribution system that's in place right now. We're building technology to support the next iteration of distribution of consumer products, not just beverage. And I think that's an important note. We're testing this with beverage right now, but the technology that we're developing could apply to beauty, personal care, home goods, anything that has a high velocity that you're reordering on a regular basis.
So are all those areas that you're looking to test into under the Iris Nova portfolio?
I think it's possible. I mean, our focus is very much on beverage right now, but beyond that, our aspiration is to build the CPG conglomerate of the future. So a conglomerate that that takes away a lot of those friction points and the different layers that have historically just taken away from the customer experience.
So with that analogy to Netflix, you talk about that huge spend on content. So extending that analogy, is spending on the R&D, the development of these new beverages, is that where most of your money is going right now for the company?
Yeah, so that's why we're focused right now on accelerating the onboarding of new brands to the platform. So we're bringing on a lot of brands this year. So the majority of the dollars that are coming into the company are either in staffing up the current team and building a more robust technical infrastructure, better pick-pack facilities, things that allow the customer to receive product faster, and then the onboarding of new brands, to build out the portfolio.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the other companies in the portfolio, or the other brands, I should say. So you have the drugstore. That's your brick and mortar retail location. I actually had an opportunity to check out the drugstore in Tribeca.
What did you think?
I thought it was interesting. It was different. It was it looks a little like this for those who aren't familiar. It's kind of like, how would you describe it? It's like almost a vending machine.
Yeah, so
a wall.
We built this out as a way for consumers to be able to have even faster access to our products. So typically people are texting us and then they have to wait for the product to come in. For customers that are located within the neighborhood of each of the drugstores, this is a great way for you to grab a bottle on your way to work, or when you're coming home from the office, or when you're just out and about. Eventually, so right now this is all Dirty Lemon products, but as we build out the portfolio, the products that are in the fridge will be all of the brands in our portfolio. So this will start to look more like a bodega fridge, or a place where you would buy your beverages, with a variety of different products, outside of just Dirty Lemon. So,
okay, but the number one thing I noticed is that there are no cashiers, there are no attendees.
Right.
There's no one basically monitoring the store.
So it's all on the honor system. So you grab a bottle, and then when you're on your way out, or at your leisure, you text us and just tell us what you took, and then we charge your account on file. Or if you're not a current customer, we send you a link to pay on your phone, which sounds like a crazy idea, but we tested it. And our theft is actually under 5%, which is crazy. And we move a lot of bottles through the fridge every single day. And the more I thought about it, as after we had launched this, like, you could walk into any store in New York City, grab a bottle of something, and walk out. Probably no one's going to stop you. But you don't, because the right thing to do is to pay for the product. And that's what we're seeing with our customers in the drugstore.
And what percentage of sales take place at these brick and mortar locations as opposed to online or via text for consumers who aren't in one of these areas?
So this is a very small. The drugstore is fundamentally a marketing initiative. We're not looking to scale the drugstore to be on every street corner. We think this is a great way to connect with customers in real life and allow them to see the products, maybe before they purchase them. But yeah, this isn't, the drugstore isn't a scaled, way for us to grow revenue. Right. The core of our business is direct to consumer. But that said, we are exploring a lot of non-traditional wholesale accounts, so airports, hotels, coffee shops, et cetera, because we think that those are great places for exploration and for people to learn about new products for the first time. So the ideal situation is that someone goes into a store, a Barry's Bootcamp or whatever, they buy one of our products, and then on the back of every bottle is our phone number, and then they just text us if they like the product, and then they get more of it. Because I think that that's the way that beverage consumers, that's the way that they typically shop. So once you find a beverage that you like, you just want more of it, delivered to you. And I think that this, is, the way that LaCroix was built and achieved, such tremendous scale in a short period of time. You look at any of the other brands in the beverage space that have grown very quickly, it's because they had fanatical fans that just wanted to, continue to receive the product. And a lot of those businesses were built on Amazon, but Amazon wasn't really built for the beverage industry specifically. And we're building the infrastructure that supports the direct consumer portion of beverage sales for brands.
Yeah, and how did you achieve that fanatical cult-like status? Because you're all over Instagram, influencers are touting Dirty Lemon, celebrities are talking about drinking it. How did you actually get to that level so quickly?
I mean, we launched on Instagram at a time that was very different than now for Instagram. So it was 2015. The Instagram feed was still chronological. So, when you posted something, it was getting out there real time to everyone who was following you. So we were, when we learned from some people who had built large followings, but we were posting sometimes up to 12 times a day. So we would post every 2 hours. Wow. Because we just knew that was the way to get the brand in front of more people.
And was it working?
Yeah, we grew a very large following very quickly. And then, we were there first when, we were one of the first brands to start advertising on Amazon or on Facebook rather, and Instagram. And that market has become so oversaturated in such a short period of time. And, we don't see, Instagram advertising and influencer marketing specifically to be as effective, nearly effective now as it was before. But yeah, that was really like the foundation of how the brand got out there early on. And it's extremely hard to build a following now from scratch because there's just, there's a lot of brands that are pulling for your attention. And, and I think consumers are just generally like desensitized to marketing. I think that the path to customer acquisition for most consumer brands now is much more long-tailed than it was even just a year or two ago. You have to really spend time with the customer and allow them to taste the product or touch it or really kind of fall in love with the product before they become a customer. Whereas just a few years back, it was much more based on an impulse purchase.
Right, absolutely. So I just want to remind everyone that in just a couple minutes, we will be opening the mic up for questions for Zak. So please get those ready and feel free to start lining up now. So do you think you would do it the same way if you launched today? Would you start on Instagram?
No, I wouldn't. If we launched today, I would do something, and we think about this with our new brands. I think that consumers want to be stimulated, and not in a physical way necessarily, but they want to really engage with something that takes them out of their reality. So what we're thinking about with the new brands is how do we take consumers on either a journey, or how is there like a story that we can allow the customer to be a part of. So I think marketing now, and the market's changing so dramatically fast, and and we're thinking every day about new ways to engage with consumers. So for example, on Instagram, we just built out a full production studio at our office in Soho, just down the street, and we're going to be moving to all video content only. So we're not posting any more still photos, and we're just focused on how do we how do we continue to engage with consumers? But the interesting thing about the video that we're producing is that we're not even going to be talking about the products. People are going to be drinking Dirty Lemon, but it's not going to be about Dirty Lemon. It's going to be about the lifestyle, around the brand.
Right.
And, but that's something that, is a shift in thought process for us to kind of, start to be producing this new type of content now. And, we want, as an organization, we want to be market driven and really reactive to what's happening in the market. And I think in years past with startups, that's been something that's been negatively looked at, like, pivoting. But I think that the strongest companies know when to pivot and know when to kind of evolve their strategy to changing market demand.
And just for you, if you weren't CEO, founder of Iris Nova, what would you be doing?
I would spend as much time with my kids as possible, and I would keep building. I love the written word. I love like really well-crafted copy. I always wanted to be an architect as a kid, so I just loved always drawing and seeing, the idea of seeing something on paper come to life. I don't know. I'd probably build a house or something like that. So.
That's awesome. All right. I think we have our first question, so I definitely want to let our first audience member take the mic.
Hi, good afternoon. Great discussion. I have a two-part question. The first being one with regards to branding and strategy. Mm-hmm. It seems like as we all migrated toward using phones a lot of companies and brands relied heavily on influencer marketing, and I think toward the end of the conversation, you mentioned something that you weren't necessarily banking on that. So we saw a rush to that, and I think that people are realizing that for whatever reason, they're not getting the return on the investment of that. Right. So I would wonder if you would elaborate a little bit on that. And then the second question is more about specifically one of the products. I think Dirty Lemon has a charcoal flavor, and I'm seeing a lot of charcoal stuff on the market in terms of health and wellness, and I'm just curious about at what point do we all decide that putting charcoal in our body was like a health thing? So anyway,
I'll answer the first question first. So there was a recent study that came out just a couple months back where they interviewed a pretty large group of people and asked them if they trusted the products that influencers were. Where did you just go? Who's the guy that just asked the question? Oh, there we go. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was looking at you. So they asked if the people that were surveyed trusted the products that were being promoted by influencers, and only 2 out of every 10 people said that they trusted those products. So this is a something that I think is. People are just generally skeptical now. So you look at the dollars that are being spent on influencer marketing. If only 2 out of 10 people are going to even take the time to observe if that's something that observe that and potentially make a purchase, it's just not a good spend of money. But coincidentally, over the last few years, the price has also skyrocketed to work with influencers. We used to pay someone $500 and a long time ago, and we saw a crazy return on that. Now it's like getting like $500 won't even get you a response to an email. So,
wow.
Anyways, the second question, charcoal. So what we saw with charcoal was what we saw years before charcoal was that people were really interested in this idea of cleansing. So juice cleanses were very big for years. And this idea of juice cleansing was that, if you only drank juice for a week at a time or whatever the period was, that you would feel healthier, lose weight, et cetera, et cetera. That idea quickly went away when all of the health and nutrition experts said, no, you can't just drink juice. You need to actually eat food, live a healthy lifestyle, exercise, etc. But what didn't go away was the idea that consuming something that had an impact on your body was good for you. And so we were, looking at specifically all of these different things that ingredients or trends that were happening in juice shops, and charcoal was something that people were adding. And charcoal has been used. It's used in hospitals every day for detoxification. It's been used to reduce bloating in like bloating in your stomach, any like digestion ailments, stuff like that. It's been a natural ingredient that's been used for a very long time for those purposes. So we decided to put that into our first beverage only because we knew that we wanted to focus on something functional, and it just happened to be a trendy ingredient at the time, and it continues to be one of our best-selling products. So clearly, there's still appeal there. But yeah, that's what led us to charcoal. The long-winded response, but thank you for asking.
And if we just think about, the White Claw obsessed millennial phase that we're seeing right now, I mean, I know you're a wellness brand, or at least Dirty Lemon is. Would Iris Nova consider going into the alcoholic beverage space?
I would love to do alcohol because I think there's so much opportunity in alcohol, but it's so challenging with the 3-tier system here in the States to be able to do anything direct to consumer. So if we did create an alcohol-based product, we would have to do it in Europe. So there's no 3-tier system in Europe. We would probably launch that in London.
But it's something you've thought about?
Yeah, and we've built this system already for the European market. So that's our thought process there. But yeah, listen, White Claw is fascinating. I mean, I've heard numbers, and I mean their EBITDA it was like 0 to like a lot in a very short period of time, and that clearly is a sign of despite the fact that it has alcohol in it, consumers want lower calorie, lower sugar products, and that historically is something that the larger strategics just haven't been able to provide to consumers, which is obviously why White Claw is so appealing. And but there's a lot of opportunity in the spirits and alcoholic beverage space. So.
Great. All right, I think we have another question.
Yes, which is your favorite Dirty Lemon flavor?
Good question. It changes day to day. We on this table here, I drink a couple a day, at least 2 a day. Yeah. I actually love the rose. Continues to be one of my favorite. It's the pink bottle. The retinol is delicious too, which is my favorite here on the table. But honestly, it changes, and I think we see this. We've launched a lot of products, and every time we have a new one come out, everyone in the office starts drinking that one specifically, and then you end up going back to one of your old favorites. And we have a couple beverages that we had for just a limited time, and we have people writing us all the time saying, "Please bring back White Rose," which was like our February launch this year. So we're always thinking, and I think that's part of what makes the brand exciting is the variety of product. So.
Great. All right.
Sorry, a money question. What is your burn rate at this time, and how much liquid assets do you have to support it? That's another question after that.
Are you an investor?
No, I'm an investor. Yeah, I am an investor. Yeah.
We're not disclosing our financials right now, but we have a great syndicate of investors that have supported our vision, and we're always raising capital. So that's something that's very this is just part of early stage company growth. So we're not able to grow the company with profits alone. So we've raised external capital and have a lot of investors. But yeah, I mean I think that we've done really well. They were asking me backstage before how many people are on the team. We have about 30 core team members and about 50 with all of the external support. So production, customer service, delivery drivers, et cetera. So given our size right now, I mean, just with 50 people, we've done a lot. So we try to be as scrappy as possible and really make sure that every dollar that's spent goes a long way. I wouldn't say that we're a standard startup that's, we're not overspending on things. We're very frugal when it comes to the dollars that are being spent, which has resulted in, I would say, a lower than usual burn for a company our size.
Yeah. And a separate question, what kind of competition do you have in the marketplace?
So in the beverage space specifically with Dirty Lemon, I mean, functional beverage really hasn't been explored in a very, there aren't a million functional beverage companies. Historically, beverage companies have always focused on one thing, and then they just double down on that. So whether that's matcha or acai or chia or whatever, pick an ingredient. So we don't have much competition with Dirty Lemon, which is, I think, why it's been appealing. On the infrastructure side, and with Iris Nova, we really don't have much competition either. But we do, competition for us is not other beverages. It's other products that consumers are going to spend. So if you have $1,000 of discretionary income every month, we have to compete with beauty brands. We have to compete with restaurants. We have to compete for the mind share of the consumer for a portion of those dollars. So we look at any products that are being targeted to millennials or even older age range as our product selection continues to grow, because those are the products that could be competing for their attention as well. So yeah, but I think relevant comps to us, I think what Revolve is doing is really exciting and really interesting. So Revolve, for anyone who doesn't know, is a clothing company, but they've built this incredible marketplace of brands that are third party and private label, using data to support all of their decision making around new product launches. And it's a really exciting company, and also an IPO that happened this year. And I think that there are going to be a lot more conglomerates built over the next decade, and I would like to for us to be one of those in the consumer space specifically.
Yeah, who do you think?
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
of course.
you. Who do you think is your biggest competition in that discretionary bucket that you're talking about?
I think that it's probably beauty brands, or I think we beverages complement like workout classes, and the lifestyle of the wellness consumer, most frequently is like workout class, some type of like workout clothing or apparel, and I think food and beverage like fits along with that. So I don't necessarily think that those are competitive, but there are other products that, I don't really have a good answer for you on that. But there's the bottom line is that there's a lot of things pulling for consumers' attention, and we naturally need to compete with those and not be the loudest necessarily, but be the most relevant and the most attractive to consumers.
Right. Great.
My question is about within the beverage industry, who is your biggest competitor with beverage to direct to consumer brands?
So I can tell you the brands that have done it best, and they're not necessarily competitors to us directly, because the products are targeted to different consumers. But so Soylent was really the first. So Soylent before us built a very, very large direct consumer business. I don't know how they're doing still on the direct consumer side, but I know that they paved the way and really kind of showed that this model was something that was interesting to consumers. It was targeted mostly to males, and now they've since kind of gone into other distribution channels. They sell in 7-Eleven and Target and all that. I think Hint Water's done a really, really good job with building a very big company, with a very large direct consumer business. Beyond those two, I'm trying to think of others. There are brands like Bai and all the water companies that have a direct consumer element of their business, but they're not necessarily the core focus of those brands. The reason why we're direct to consumer is because we want to we want to understand better what the consumer wants, so that we can create new products that are in line with their wants and demands and changing tastes and all that stuff. And that's something that store shelves just don't allow for. I want consumers to be able to ideally come to us and say, I really would love if you made a raspberry drink or whatever. And we say, sure, we'll do it, and then we do it. And that's what happened with CBD. So we launched the first CBD beverage in the United States nationally last year. We don't sell the product anymore because there's a lot of challenges legally with selling CBD at scale. But we won Beverage of the Year for it. It was extremely successful. And before we launched that product, we actually went out to our customers and said, what do you think we should launch next? And overwhelmingly, everyone said CBD. So we launched that product. It was, and that was that. The rest is history. I'd like to do that more often and get to a place with our operational infrastructure where not only with Dirty Lemon, but with other brands, we can, leverage the power of opinion and actual, what people want to be able to provide them those things. Because at the end of the day, when you peel off the labels of any beverage product, what's the liquid in the bottle is all commodity, and it can be changed and manipulated and all that stuff. what people buy into is the brand and the trust factor that comes with purchasing a brand as well. So it's a very unique category in that way because this liquid can change while the integrity of the brand still remains.
Would you go back to CBD? I mean, now that the Farm Bill has passed, it's still a booming business as we're seeing.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about that, and this is the first time this has probably ever happened in history, where you have an ingredient or something that's grown that has both psychedelic properties and also therapeutic properties. So there's naturally a challenge in that because there's a lot of dollars to be earned or had, in selling cannabis in its variety of different forms. But yeah, despite the fact that it is legal to grow industrial hemp, the FDA still hasn't cleared CBD as an ingredient to be used in food and beverage products, which is the challenge that a lot of emerging brands are facing now. So New York City just announced that in October, they're going to start fining on a per occasion basis all of the retailers that are selling CBD products. So I think it's $600 or $900 per occurrence for if they're caught selling the product, which to a small local grocer is a lot of money.
Right.
So that type of regulation is going to drive out a lot of the innovation that's happened in the space. And I think honestly, if I had to predict, I think that it's going to fall to the states to make the decision on if it's legal to them or not. But ultimately, the FDA needs to make that decision on a national level. And we're not in a position from a liability standpoint to take on the risk associated with fighting with the FDA. So until it's legal nationally, it's not something that we're going to be pursuing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Victor Hugo Gutierrez, president of the Global Entertainment Media and Technology Group. And first, you're a man on the pulse of new technology. And also, thank you for being a spiritual leader by bringing different spirits to the New York City bars. And of course, you're going to be adding a little more substance to it, which is beautiful. Now, the question for you, Zach, is what are you planning now and in the future with artificial intelligence, AI? What is your company's goals now?
So last year we purchased a company called Poncho, which was a conversational weather bot. And Poncho won in 2017. It was named the world's best chatbot. And we purchased that company because the artificial intelligence and the natural language processing that they had built around handling conversations at scale was incredibly exciting. So we bought that company, and we took all of that core technology and we rolled it into the natural language processing that we use for all of the Iris Nova brands. And that, so we want to continue to invest in that. We're talking to and looking at a lot of other tech companies that are focused on these specific areas of conversation at scale, which is something that a lot of businesses don't think about unless you're a bank or you have a very heavy customer service component. It's something that most brands just don't think of is how do you converse with a lot of people at one time. An airline, was another good example of that. That's something that we're thinking about all the time and thinking about ways that we can strengthen that for customers to elevate the experience. So.
I have one last question for you. So the last reported funding round for Iris Nova was that infusion from Coca-Cola.
Correct.
What's your funding year to date? Have there been further rounds since then?
We have not closed any rounds beyond the Coca-Cola round. But yeah, like I said before, we're going to need to continue fundraising for some time. And we'll be sure to let you know as soon as we close more funding.
Great. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, Zach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.